Good day, good people. This is Lessons for the Journey, but I am going to start it off a little bit different today. I am going to offer libations, verbal libations to my mothers, our ancestors, and I'm going to start that libation with a poem by Nikki Giovanni speaking to her mother. It's called Mothers. The last time I was home to see my mother, we kissed, exchanged pleasantries and unpleasantries, pulled a warm, comforting silence around us, and read separate books. I remember the first time I consciously saw her. We were living in a 3-bedroom apartment on Burns Avenue. Mommy always sat in the dark. I don't know how I knew that, but she did. That night, I stumbled into the kitchen, maybe because I've been a night person or because I had wet the bed. She was sitting on a chair. The room was bathed in moonlight, diffused through those thousands of panes landlords who rented to people with children were prone to put in windows. She may have been smoking, but maybe not. Her hair was 3/4 her height, which made me a strong believer in the Samson myth, and very black. I'm sure I just hung there by the door. I remember thinking, what a beautiful lady. She was very deliberately waiting, perhaps for my father to come home from his night job, or maybe for a dream that I promised to come by. Come here, she said. I'll teach you a poem. I see the moon sees me. God bless the moon, and God bless me. I taught it to my son, who recited it for her, just to say we must learn to bear the pleasures as we have borne the pain. This is a poem by Nikki Giovanni, and it is from her book called Mothers from Our House, copyright 1972. And I just thought about this season that we're in to acknowledge Black maternal health. So we have a week called Black Maternal Health coming up, where lots of celebrations and honors and awareness is being brought to our attention. But I want to help us to see the inner beauty of Black maternal health. I want us to acknowledge the mothers, the godmothers, the grandmothers, the ancestral mothers who've come before us, who've laid the path. And I want to begin that with my own mother, Paula Karan Miller. I want to give that to my godmother, my first godmother, May Parche, rest her soul, and my chosen godmother, Mother Sarah Anderson. My grandmothers, Catherine Williams, Lillian Miller. My great-grandmothers, Edna Ayers, my grandmother Ballard. I want to thank those mothers who poured into me, who poured into the vision of who I was going to become, who adopted me, who watched over me, who walked me to school, Roseanne Graves, who were in school, Vivian Haslip, those mothers who took me under their wing as I was growing into the woman that I have become. I thank those mentors who've come before me. I thank those women who have opened a door, like Fannie Lou Hamer. I thank Lillian, who contributed to my journey of understanding how important our elders are and what our elders have to offer. I thank them for this day, and for you, I say, Ashe. So, good day, good people. As we start this journey today, and welcome to another purpose-filled episode of Lessons for the Journey. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and information on women's wellness, understanding our whys, and the lessons that inspire us to take positive actions in ourselves, our families, and our communities. We focus on topics of women's wellness, seeing through the metaphysical lens, sharing spiritual insights, highlighting journey lessons, and building healthy relationships. I am your host, Dr. Heather Heteru. I share this space with my engaging co-host, Maat Sabah, Jada Rains, Nicole S. Miller, Mary E. Bayou, and our producer, Chantel Mosley. We share this space because we know that the lessons that we have to share with you and bring to you can enrich your life and your journey. We want you to take notes. We need for you to have a notebook and an ink pen handy because we want to pour into you like we have been poured into. You can expect in this podcast deep, thought-provoking conversations on self-discovery and personal growth, special guests, locations, events, polls, and thoughts, co-hosts sharing wisdom and life-changing insights, a powerful blend of spiritual, metaphysics, and wellness lessons, and also tools and strategies to help you elevate your mind, your body, and your spirit. This show is produced by Chantel Mosley of Podcastic Studios. We want this to be engaging and transformational for you. We want you to uncover your healing journey with us every Friday at noon. We need for you to tune in, get inspired, and evolve. So let's jump into our topic for today. I know I started off kind of a shocker to you, didn't it? But I'm a little unpredictable like that sometimes. That's what you can do when you have a voice that you have to share. All right, so for our topic today, we are honoring Black maternal health, not just a week, not just a month, but all year round. The metaphysics of mother is our conversation today. And, we always start with some reflection questions. And so my reflection questions, and I'm going to pull Chantel Mosley into these questions with me as she's in the studio with me today. What are the character traits that you have adopted from your mother? Chantel, you want to try that question?
Yes. Okay. So a sense of time is one of the characteristic traits that I've adopted from my mom. I have a real keen sense on time, and it has helped me in, my growing years of life when it comes to jobs, just business meetings, just being anywhere. I try to leave early, be on time, factor that in. Being caring is another trait that I've adopted from my mom. She's super caring. She's a Taurus, so she's definitely stuck in her ways, but she's caring. And another strong characteristic that I would take from my mom is a sense of independence, being able to navigate on my own. No, that's not how I want it to be always. I am, looking to one day be in a relationship and be led. However, the sense of independence has helped me also with just kind of growing up in life and being able to just do for me.
Blessings.
So, yes.
Blessings.
Thank you.
I love this question because it really gives you an opportunity to pull a little bit deeper than the surface. Mm-hmm. When I think about my mom, so my surface response, I wish I could say the on time thing, but no. That is not the trait that I got from my mother. One of the traits, though, that I love about my mother and I appreciate and that she really instilled in all of us and our children. So my mom has 7 biological and she has also 1 adopted. So we have all been filled with the sense of help and the urgency of what it means to help. And so I really love that about her, that about her nature. I love that my mother has a healthy respect for nature. And that was one of the opportunities that she opened in my path, to have a healthy respect for nature and all aspects of nature. So the grass, the dandelions, the tree bark, the ants, like all of those elements of nature that we get to explore and experience every day. She gave me a new lens to see the world that way. And I really appreciate that about her. And I think the final characteristic that my mom offered her children and anybody that knows her is how to show love and the different ways that you show love based on what the person needs and how they need it, not necessarily how you want to deliver it to them. So my mom is always very aware of what a person needs to be loved, even her children. And she always poured that into all of us. And it was always special and unique to you. And she is that way to anybody who's near her, around her. What is special and unique to them. So I appreciate those. Thanks, Mom.
Yes, I think that's so great, though.
Yeah.
something that just stuck out to me was people only know how to give you what they can, and sometimes that's not what you need, and they may get mad in return because they feel like I'm giving my all, but it's not enough or it hasn't reached you, and that's because I'm not receptive of it because that's not what I need at the moment.
Right.
So your mom being able to individualize, a one's need is amazing.
Yes,
and cater to that. So
yeah, that's a big part of her. So all those out there watching who know her, you know what honey is about to do. So okay, so the second question is, in what ways is mother represented that raises our consciousness and awareness? And we're going to get a little bit deeper into this conversation as we talk through some of the hidden jewels in mother today. But just to think about, when you think about mothers and what mothers in general represent across the spectrum, not necessarily your individual mother, but that raises our consciousness and awareness. You know, I think about what comes to mind for me is all of the different names that we have for mother. Right?
Yes.
Ma. I hear that a lot. Ma. I got it. Ma. So mom, mother, mommy. I call my mom mommy. Mother, mum. I have an uncle that's from the UK. He is mum, M-U-M. So mum. Yeah. It's mama. Let me see. And I wrote some of these down too. Yes. Let me see. Ma, M-A. Okay, ma, M-A. And here's an interesting fact about ma, using the word ma, is it actually represents land.
Wow.
And so, and that makes sense to me when you think about the many names for earth. Gaia is one of those names for earth. Yeah. Gaia also represents the mother principle. Mother nature, right, represents the mother principle.
That's so interesting when you take the root of words.
Yes. And then ma, M-A-H, means great.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, just looking at that and really pulling back the layers, kind of pulling out with those, why we say mom, not just because it was an easy syllable that we learned when we were learning to speak, but also that it has power to it and it represents land, it represents greatness. And mama, spelled M-A-M-M-A, represents breasts or food. And that's where they talk about the mammary glands. And so that's where that comes from. Mama, M-A-M-A, speaks to a sexually attractive woman. How about that? And that's dated back to like 1752, something like that. Of course, mom, M-O-M. Mommy, same thing. And then mom, like we just talked about. But it also is a derivative of the word ma'am, M-A-A-M, or M-A'-A-M, which is a woman with rank or authority, ma'am. And then madame, of course, that's a French variation, but it also means much of the same, a woman with authority. And then mother, the word mother also means origin or source.
And that's interesting because back to the reflection question, when you said how was mother represented, the beginning of life is what came about in my mind because of, every Mother's Day is always, mom is there. She gave you life. She, kind of was never left your side, just always there. And so much comes from a woman, and her womb is blessed when she does carry. So that's what I thought of, the beginning of life. So it's interesting to know that some of these are dealing with world or, so that's.
Yeah, I mean, it crosses culture, it crosses language. It's really a vast way to look at the word mother, but also what the energy that goes along with the word mother. And, we talk about names a lot. Your name is your nature. It's one of the first things that you are given when you're born. But it's also, if you go back to biblical times in scripture, that was Adam's job, was to name. He was supposed to name all the animals and all the things that were in the garden. That was his job to do. But it was also supposed to reflect what that object or animal or entity represented. And so when we look at our names and we think about the meaning of our name, we should also give attention to the fact that our name is our nature. So it should draw out who you are. Either you define your name or your name is going to define you. But either way, you want people to speak well of your name. And so when most people speak of ma, mother, mom, it's something that's well spoken, and it represents, the first thing that it represents is the energy of the mother, the womb, the land that of our source and our sustenance. And so I think that's really important to acknowledge as we look at maternal health and all of the ups and downs. I don't want to talk about this week or this episode about the shadow of mother. And I know, all of us have some good examples. We've seen some bad examples, and we've also seen the detrimental activities around maternal health. And for today, I just want to lift up mother in a way that we look at her through a spiritual and a metaphysical lens. I want to lift up the ideas of who she is, so that when we talk about maternal health, and especially Black maternal health, when we start to have these conversations, we have a different perspective of the value that she brings. And as we go on throughout the year, and we are constantly, on our podcast, we are constantly looking how we balance the contributions of mother and father, and masculine and feminine, more importantly, that you have to have both in order to have balance. And so I just want to kind of just set the tone for where we're going with this conversation today. And thank you for your participation. So if you haven't gotten your journal or your pad and pen, this is a good time to grab it, because we're really about to go into some more in-depth conversations. And I think that you could appreciate the physical and the metaphysics that we're going to talk about mother right now.
Now, I do have a question, Miss Heather. Do you feel as though the correlation between what we call our mom at different stages of our life makes a difference? Because you know how when we're younger, it's typically, like you said, the more easier ma, because you were younger. Growing up, it's mother or mom or, things like that. And then, when you're a little girl, you may say mommy, versus when you get older, mom. So do you think there's a correlation with that, or?
I absolutely, I do. I think it more is a reflection of our understanding and of what that term or that word means to us as we evolve, versus the evolution of mother herself. And although one of the opportunities that we have to acknowledge mother is that she actually changes over time. I think about, at that stage where I call my mom mommy. Well, I still do, but most of the time. But just growing up, I remember my mother, and my mother's 83 now. And so when she was vibrant, and when she was raising her children and playing jacks and running up and down the street playing hopscotch, like that was the mother that I had at that time. And when I think about my mother, she's somewhere in between that 20-something mother and the 80-something mother. So I see her kind of in between. When I first think of her, where I get her on the phone, where I have a thought of her, she's somewhere in there where she's in her maiden crone stage. Is somewhere in there that my image automatically goes to her for that. But I always think of her as being strong. I always think of her as having the answers, or I always think of her that way. But she wasn't always that way. She had to evolve into being and becoming a mother, as she did, just like every woman does. But we don't give them the benefit of that doubt. We don't give them the benefit of the thought that you are not who you were when you had me.
Yes.
And so I think that is an honor that we should now begin to consider, that she has evolved over time. Yeah. Just like you, if you're a mother, you have evolved over time. And just like the language, the name that you referred to her as, from there to now. And because my mother has grandchildren, they all call her Honey. And so that name Honey moved from grandchildren, it moved to family, it moved to friends, it moved to neighbors, and anybody who knows her now, they don't call her Paula, which is her name, they call her Honey. So she evolved much like you talked about over time.
Because with the moms, something that was said that really stuck out to me, and I heard it before. Your mom lived her life without you. You never lived your life without her.
Ooh, that's powerful.
So when I heard that, I'm like, wow. That helped me better understand, just as an adult now, given my mom grace that I may not have given before because I just wasn't in that space. But as me and my mom have grown together, I'm at a stage now where I'm able to understand her as an adult, as a mom, but then as a woman too.
Right.
So it's a significant change, and like you said, it does grow over time.
Mm-hmm. And so I like that question. Thank you for bringing that to the forefront to give us more consideration about how we look at our mothers.
Yes.
So thank you. So there are some physical connections to the mother that are worthy of discussion. A few of them, and some of these are going to be obvious to you. I'm like, yeah, of course. Connection to the breast, right? Connections to the breast, we think of about milk or the sustenance that our mothers provide, right? That is our immune system protection, mother's protection over all kinds of external factors that could impact you as a baby. That protectiveness that she offers, not just physically, but through her body, through the fluids in her body. And that same fluid is the same fluid that you were safe in, right? In her body, in her womb, you were safe and protected. And this amazing field of, what did Miles call it? He was talking about the placenta, but he called it something else. He called it something else. Anyway, but in that encasement of protection, it was sealed, and the only way in and out was through your mother. And so that is such an amazing process of the woman's body, of the mother's body. Mm-hmm. It's different from the woman's body. So a woman's body is not always producing milk. A mother's body, when she gives birth, it starts to prepare itself. And for some women, if there's a small child near you, you can automatically start lactating. So you could your body can respond to a child being around you and start producing milk because it hears just the child around you.
Wow.
And so that is mostly of a mother who's given birth. So just like women's, we talked about in one of our episodes how a woman's cycle syncs up with her sister or other women around her. It's somewhat the same when there's a baby involved. That's why women in slavery times, it was they called her a wet nurse, right? Mm-hmm. But she could feed any baby, and she did feed any baby, and especially those babies that she was entrusted to care for that belonged to the owner, the slave owner, right? She was the one that was nursing the baby, right? And so, and it was a constant state, whether you were like that could have been your job. You were just to nourish a baby, right? And so that breast milk is really important. But here's another insight, that when you hold a baby, a child, or an adult close to your breast, close to your chest, and they can hear your heartbeat, it also automatically decreases their anxiousness. It decreases anxiety because they're in sync now. Their heart is in sync with yours. And it's such a profound. Can you imagine just to calm somebody down? Yeah. And it helps in relationships too. So it doesn't have the same exact effect when a woman holds her head to a man's chest as it does for a man to hold his head to a woman's chest. It's this fascination with breasts, right? And some people make alterations. Some people try to make it more just so they're visibly appealing, not understanding that it's also what it's made of and what you're made of that offers that type of comfort for a child, for a mate, for somebody who is going through. It's nothing like having somebody close to you where you can comfort them. And so, ladies, that's a cue for you, that if you have a man that may be overly emotional or going through, as you talk calmly to him and you pull him close to you, there is a calmness that happens. There is a connection that happens. There is a calming effect. And you are able to nurture him in a way that he can remember through his genetics that mother held me close and I was safe there. So it's another strategy for women, for those who are looking to engage in healthy relationships. This is another way to do that with your mate. So keep that mind and that line open, but also understand that you can bring someone close to you. You can bring a friend close to you, and it doesn't have to be romantic or intimate, but it does allow you the level of connectedness that everybody needs. It's one of the reasons why so many children get sickly early in their lives, is because they don't have that closeness or that touch, that loving touch and intention. And so we need to keep pouring that loving touch and intention over our children. As they age, just because they're getting older doesn't mean that they don't need that embrace. So keep that in mind. Also, I wanted to talk about the womb of the mother. So we talked a little bit about that, but the womb of the mother being a safe, sealed space. So it's like being held in a solitary environment where most of what you hear is her voice. Most of what you feel is her emotions. And so we talk about a lot about, how when males get older, you're a mama's boy, you're emotional. A lot of that has to do with that inner and interconnectedness. And it's not a bad thing, but you have to be able to set boundaries and understand those boundaries. So we want to make sure that we understand that womb space is such an important space. And it's not, and it is one of the reasons why the male is always trying to reconnect in that space with a woman. It is their origin, it's their place of origin. So don't misinterpret that as a space of comfort as well. It's like going home. Yeah. We don't really talk about sex in that way. We talk about the desire and the pull, but there is a natural desire and pull because that's the procreation process. But there's also that process of comfort and why it feels so good to connect with someone in that way when you have that loving relationship. And that draw and that need to be comforted in that way opens a lot of people up, because it may not be their heart that they're open to. It's the memory of where they have been that they're trying to reconnect with. So we have to be careful and mindful, because we then have to set boundaries. We have to make sure that we're setting boundaries, because we are birthing life as a result of it, or we're birthing ideas as a result of it. And we're putting all of that into the world that we're living in. If there's not love attached to it, then we see what's attached to it. And then we're seeing that behavior, we're seeing that lack, we're seeing that response in the world that we're in now. We have the opportunity to choose every day to reset. What will you do and why are you doing it? So keep that in mind. All of that for the mother is in the womb of the woman. It is where it begins, and it is where it matures and it grows, and it's where you have a choice. So be mindful who you allow into that space. Be mindful what you're doing and your intention when you're in that space, so that the ideas of the male that you are with that are being planted in your womb and manifested through you, that they're good intentions that are coming out in the world. So make sure that you keep that in mind. I also want to talk a little bit about the umbilical cord and the physical cord, and then what I'm calling the invisible cord. So once that cord is cut between mother and child, it doesn't mean that connection is cut, because it is a spiritual connection between the spirit realm and the physical realm. It is the lifeline between the spirit realm and the physical realm, and it's connected up until the point of birth. And then, there's some people make it a bigger ritual where they're cutting the cord, and who's the first to cut the cord, and all of those, the things that go along with that.
Now, I do have a question. So you know how people typically say you can never really be ready for motherhood. Mm-hmm. But it seems like the woman body is already naturally set up to give those things off. Can you give a little insight on that? Or is that a true statement?
Well, I mean, Well, first of all, if you're born female, you're already in the process. Once from birth, you're already in the process of developing everything that you need to procreate. And so, I mean, of course, there are some exceptions because, there are some unique beings in our world too. But for the most part, your body is already developing everything that it needs, and it's already born with everything it needs. It's just going to mature from there. So it still is a spiritual and physical process. It is things that are coming from the spirit realm that have to be birthed into the world, including the mindset for motherhood. But there are things that are happening. Let me go back because on our last session with Dr. Mary Bayou, she talked about the need for rest and sleep to activate that melanin, right? It starts the healing process when you're asleep. It's one of the reasons why babies sleep so much during those early days, those early months or weeks, is because their bodies, their bones are stretching, breaking, pulling, just like their skin. And so they're growing so fast and they're taking in so much information. Our children take in, I believe it's like 70% of their information up to the age of 3.
Wow.
So they're taking a lot of information and they're sponges, but what they have is the blueprint of your DNA. I'm sorry, the imprint of your DNA and their blueprint. And so they're taking in, but they're also taking in your choices from your past, how you handle yourself, habits, behaviors. That's why we see so much of ourselves in our children. They seems like they've been here before, and you got a newborn with a remote in their hand or a cell phone and all of these kinds of things. Where do you think they're getting that from? That was the imprint that you put on them, they're already carrying the imprint for that. So if you're a person that's always on social media, guess what you're breeding in your child? You're going to see them more engaging on cell phones and in social media. You're going to see them looking at TV and these images and imitate. It is the funniest thing, it's cute, but I want to just bring it to your attention. You see I saw a video of whatever the new hustle is with the fans.
Yeah.
This little baby, she about 2 years old. She's doing the dance with the fans.
Yes.
That's not by chance.
She learned that before me.
Right. Yes, it's cute, but understand where that's coming from.
Yeah.
That's coming from mom and dad's imprint. So she's born with already your imprint in it. So you're probably have been doing those dances anyway. She's getting it from somewhere, or you have the susceptibility for those things that's imprinted in you. It becomes our imprints as parents, mother and father, become the part of their blueprint. So ultimately they'll have a choice. We have a choice to do what we do today because that's still imprinting on your children. We're still imprinting on our children. The decisions and choices that we're making every day, who we allow to touch our bodies, who we allow to be in our good company, who we allow to influence us, what is influences, what are we taking into our bodies? All of that is influence. All of that is imprinted on our DNA that then goes to our children and becomes part of their blueprint. Your imprint becomes part of their blueprint. And so just to be mindful of that. And so with the umbilical cord, that the visible part of that cord that gets cut never severs the spiritual connection of that cord, because that cord pulled from the spirit realm, which is the realm of creation and possibilities, and it got pulled through the portal with that child to the physical realm. So even though it was separated physically, spiritually it can never be severed. That's why for some people who may have never seen their mother or their father, you still feel a connection. It's something about them that you may not know that's already imprinted that is a part of that connection of that cord. The cord is also part of that connection of mother and father. So the remnants of the sperm that help to create and fertilize that egg that then becomes the child is also part of the mechanism of the becoming of that safe space that is a part of what now is your child in your womb. So womb care is very important. Again, this is a conversation about maternal, our mothers, and celebration of maternal health and Black Maternal Health Week. All right. And so the last thing that I want to bring to your attention around this physical aspect of mother is her voice. It is something my mother could stand on the porch and call my name. It did not matter where I was in the neighborhood. I would hear my mother call. I would hear her shrill, loud voice, and I could hear her. It just permeated the air. And it's, and for our family, when she starts calling your name, you see nothing but the back of people's feet, the back of their head, the back of their feet, running, because you know that she's calling you. So it is her voice that we become accustomed to. It is sometimes that same voice that offers you that sense of peace. That's why at some point, reading to your children, because they get to hear your voice when they're pregnant with them, when you're pregnant with the ideas for your children and the idea of your children, it's important how you say what you say. It's important that you're speaking life. It's important that the words that you use every day are affirming. The words that you use every day are speaking into the future, into the life of your child, even after birth. It's so important, and it's so discouraging to see mothers who are cussing at their children, who are calling them names, who are speaking things that are not life into their lives, that are not speaking health and wealth and success. We have to do more of that, because her voice carries. And it doesn't just carry to the ears, it carries to the mind, to the thoughts, and to the very fiber of that child. It becomes part of their skin. It becomes part of their skin. Our skin is our largest organ, and it absorbs not just lotion, and it absorbs all things, vibration. It absorbs. That's why right now I'm thinking about it, and the hair on my arm is standing up, because I'm absorbing that energy of the words, even that I'm speaking back into myself, because this is inspirational to me. This knowledge is so very important. It's important to understand what we're taking in. It's not just your ears, it's not just your eyes, it's not just your senses, but it's also through the fiber of your body, the skin. So make sure that as you're speaking to your children and your voice, and you're speaking not just to your children, but you're speaking to others, it is also that effect. When you feel, you kind of feel when people are talking grimy, it makes you feel a certain way. Like you can feel it on your skin, like you feel like you're not clean, because certain people may look at you a certain way or speak to you a certain way, and it just doesn't resonate with you, and you just want to get away from them. That's part of that. So just like there is an upside, a positive way, there's also a downside and a negative way that you can take in that information. So I believe if we took the time to pause, if we took the time to think intentionally about what we want to say to someone to uplift them, even in the midst of someone losing their own control of thought and their own control of action, we don't have to respond that way. We can choose differently. And when we do, we set a chain of events in motion, because your voice has frequency, it has power, it has there's a expected end to what we're saying. It doesn't just fall on the ground. Although that is a place that it goes, but it doesn't just fall on the ground. It's in the air, it's in the atmosphere. So there are a lot of people who talk about, and if you haven't witnessed this, I'm sure you will soon enough. If it comes to your awareness, when you come into the city limits of Detroit, you feel an energy shift. There's a reason why there is an energy shift when you come into the city, especially when you're coming from 75. And you're on the other side, like Taylor, and you're coming into the city, there's a definite change by the time you get to the oil refineries. There's a definite change when you're coming into Detroit from 96, from the Lodge, from all these other avenues. is very much energetic. Part of that is what the people are saying. Part of it is what is coming out of our mouths. If we lifted our voices toward positive, and you can actually feel a different energy on Sundays and Saturdays than you do during a weekday. I'm just bringing this to your awareness. Mm-hmm. If you are a part of speaking life and affirmation into the atmosphere in the city, in the house that you're in, you change the frequency. You can change the frequency. That means that your voice has power. And so that's one of the first things that our children hear when they are born, but it's also what they hear throughout their lives. And mother has a lot of authority in what and how she uses it through what she says. So be mindful. All right, let's shift it down a bit. I do want to talk about this mother in a more metaphysical and spiritual way. So I want to talk about mother as a divine source of energy, nurturing, and guidance. And so one of the aspects or elements that mother represents is protective, intuitive, and the feminine principle. And that is not just in the physical sense, but we're talking about in the spiritual sense and in the universe. Because there's a masculine principle and there's a feminine principle. And we're talking about the sacred feminine. And here's where you'll hear it and see it a lot. We see it and hear it a lot in religion, right? We hear a lot about Mary, the mother of Jesus, but also in correspondence to that, it's Isis and her son Haru, right? So which is a more ancient principle, but it's still a symbol of love, intuition, and devotion. And so when we think about the metaphysics of mother, we can think about the divine nurturing, which is the concept of a mother figure, and can be seen as a universal archetype representing the divine and nurturing force that brings life into being and sustains it. Into being and sustains it. And so we can look at that in multiple ways. We can look at mother as earth. We can look at mother as nature. We can look at mother as the feminine principle. And in terms of feminine intuition, motherhood is often linked with intuition, suggesting a deeper understanding of the world and its hidden truths. Mother as spiritual guidance, and for that is different spiritual traditions. The mother figure can be seen as a source of wisdom, guidance, and support on the spiritual path. And then lastly, as we talked about, mother as earth, which is seen as symbolizing nature, the life-giving force, and the interconnectedness of all things, and the divine mother and child, which is the image that we've often seen. And we know that historically that image is of Isis and her son Haru in ancient Kemet. And that symbol of the divine mother is the symbol of a greater love. It's a symbol of devotion and a pathway to higher spiritual understanding. And so this is not to take away from anybody's beliefs. What it is to expand our understanding and how we can apply those tools now. So that was my thought on it. Anything that you see, Chantel, that you want to add when you think about the metaphysics of mother?
So what kind of stood out to me was the divine, nurturing. Mm-hmm. And that just kind of brings me back to what a mother gives, what a mother brings, mm-hmm. no matter how old you get. Like you just want to be around your mom. That's your safe space. And I just thought we go through that cycle of when we get older, that's when we more so just want our parents. When we're in our teenage phase, it's, they're wanting our lives, right. They're controlling. But as you get older, you be like, okay, this is kind of where I want to be. And it's, you always want to kind of call your mom. You want to ask for help, advice. Now you need it, and now it's necessary. So just that divine nurturing. And,
I think about those people who have adopted mother, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's your friend's mother and you relate to her better, or you feel like she understands you better. It's still the mother principle. Mm-hmm. It's still what you need in a different space than what you may have or have not gotten what you needed from her. But isn't it amazing how that sense of mother is open enough to embrace others?
Yes.
I love that about who and what motherhood truly is when you expand your heart.
Yeah.
Because so many people just need to have that nurturing, just need to have that safe space where you feel like you see me, you understand me, you are protecting me, you may be feeding me, you may be giving me a hug, you may be making me feel like I have something to look forward to, you may make me feel like I have value, and you just come on in, have a seat.
Yes.
And the rules apply to you too.
Yes.
And so many young people really need that
structure.
Yeah.
And that goes
absolutely.
to the feminine intuition too. I just feel like a woman knows, a mother knows. They say it's literally, you can't get nothing past your mom because she knows you. She knows it before you even know what you're gonna do. So
Right.
I just feel like that's just what females, like, period. Our intuition speaks volumes, and sometimes people don't really understand the significance, and they may second guess themselves and find themselves like, I felt that, I had a gut feeling, I knew, but I just felt we just have that instinct.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
and I feel like it heightens even more when you become a mother. Just like they say, you got mother ears. Like, I can hear everything, I can see everything, because it's just in that intuition, like, you just know. So
It's a phenomenal space to be a mother. It's a phenomenal space to have been entrusted with a child. And that was one of my early lessons. And I'm going to share this with you all. If you are still seeing your child as a possession, like, that's my baby, that's my son, that's my daughter. If you're still saying things like that in a way that limits their value to a possession or an object, we tend to negotiate. This is why we get into some difficulties in co-parenting or parent when we have some difficulty when we're breaking up with someone, and that breakup starts to sever that relationship between the parents and that child. That's when we get into really, really muddy waters. And the one that really suffers is the child. And so if you're still using your child as a pawn to negotiate, you're out of water, you're out of sync. So that means that currency that goes with the flow of that same fluid that was surrounding that child, you're out of sync with that. So you're out of sync with the spirit, because that fluid is a spiritually infused. That's a spiritually infused fluid. And so that fluid is around that child, and the energy, water takes on personality, water takes on the energy that you're placing on it. And you've seen lots of those studies, so I don't have to keep going on about that. But the fluid, the same fluid that is running through your child, is picking up on that same positive or negative influence. And then combine that with the relationship that you may have with the father, or the father may have with the mother. That tension also is being picked up by that child. So it's absorbed through the skin, and it's flowing through the body of that child. If that turmoil continues to flow, what do you think is happening to the child? What's happening to their mind? Because that fluid is going through their heart, through their body, and through their mind, through their brain, that spinal fluid. What do you think is happening based on how the words that you're using, based on the environment that is creating? Who do you think is really being harmed? You are not an exception. You are harming yourself, but you're also harming the child. And because they don't have that protection, because you've transferred that energy from protection to possession, you put them at risk. And so the mother is so much more than what's on the surface. We need to make sure that we're making good choices from the very beginning and during the process. Kids need both parents. You've already made the choice, and that child is in the world. That means they're an imprint from the mother and an imprint from the father that cannot be erased unless you change your behavior, unless you change the way you think. That is going to continue to flow and the current of the child's system. It's going to continue to do that. So you can change it by the words that you're saying. So make sure that you are speaking life in and around your children and the environment that you're creating. Speak life. Mother, you have power. Mother, you have purpose. Mother, you have control over you. Not anyone else, but over you. But you can influence others. And that's where we get into trouble. Or that's where we get into pride. And that's where we get into the things that we need to be who we have been called to be. We have been entrusted with motherhood. You've been entrusted with a sacred gift. We have to make sure that we're using it better.
That's so good.
And I talked about Nikki Giovanni as just a foremost voice of being the mother, of being just an amazing human being. And we talk about the words and the words that she has so eloquently given to us in the world. And so, and I want to say, I feel like it's a former life, but in my younger days, if anybody out there remembers Coffee and Cream, that used to be my spot. I used to go there and share poetry. It was the Harmony Park. I used to go there and share poetry, and it was just a safe space to be able to pour. And this is pre-Love Jones days, guys. So it was a safe space to go and to share and to pour out the words into the hearts of others and share that word. And so I wrote a poem. This is one of my poems, and this is what came to mind for me today in closing of our show. It's called Through Every Window. Through every window, there's a drama in motion. Where is love lost or found, abuse or neglect, sickness or health, triumph or tragedy, comedy or calamity? Today's cast appears in many combinations: man and woman, mother and child, friend to friend, government to family, employer to employee, sex to like, teacher to student. Every day is a drama in motion. Every dream, every thought, every action, everyone that touches a life, any life directly or indirectly, serves as a special guest to the cast of players. When the phases, all the world is a stage, and everything happens for a reason, were coined. They were accurate. Think of the circumstances behind your reading this poem. Every little incident that led up to this point. Trace it back to the very start of your day. Who do you have, and have you ever wondered who's watching you through your window? Thank you. I am Dr. Heather Hedharu. You have been on this journey of the lessons for the journey with me today, and our producer, Chantel Mosley. We thank you for listening today, and I hope that there was something that we shared that helped you to connect to your journey, to help you to find the lesson, to help you to find a new way, and understand that the choices that you make today are the things that you see in your life unfold tomorrow. And so, if you need to get in touch with me, please feel free to reach me by phone at 313-759-7855 or visit my website, yourinspiredwithad.journey.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. Until next time, stay clear.